In the midst of World War II, when Europe was drowning in chaos, one young woman made a choice that would forever etch her name into the history of courage and sacrifice. Her name was Noor Inayat Khan, a quiet, gentle soul who believed in peace, music, and love. But when the world fell into darkness, she became something far greater, one of Britain's most remarkable spies. Noor was not born into the life of a soldier or an agent. She was born in Moscow in 1914, the daughter of an Indian Sufi spiritual teacher, Hazrat Inayat Khan, and an American mother, Aura Ray Baker. Her family was unique, a blend of cultures, faiths, and ideas about harmony between people. Her father was a descendant of Tipu Sultan, the famous 18th century ruler of Mysore in southern India, who resisted British colonial rule. Ironically, decades later, his descendant would fight for Britain, not because she loved war, but because she hated tyranny. When Noor was still a child, her family moved to Paris, where she grew up surrounded by music, poetry, and philosophy. She played the harp, studied child psychology, and wrote children's stories for French radio. By all accounts, Noor was shy, soft-spoken, and deeply spiritual, not the kind of person you'd imagine sneaking behind enemy lines. Yet that gentleness hid a quiet steel. When Nazi Germany invaded France in 1940, Noor and her family fled to England. She was just 26 years old. Most refugees wanted only safety. Noor wanted to fight back. She could not stand by while innocent people were rounded up. While Europe fell under the shadow of fascism, she joined the Women's Auxiliary Air Force, WAAF, as a radio operator, one of the few technical roles women could take at the time. But soon, her skills and fluency in French caught the attention of a secret organization, one that would change her life forever. It was called the Special Operations Executive, or SOE, Britain's clandestine spy agency created by Winston Churchill himself, with one mission: to set Europe ablaze. The SOE trained men and women to be saboteurs, spies, and resistance leaders, dropped behind enemy lines to support local uprisings and sabotage German operations. When Noor volunteered, the instructors were skeptical. She seemed too gentle, too idealistic, and too visibly emotional for the brutal realities of undercover war. But she was determined. She passed her training, though not without difficulty. Her superiors noted that she was not physically strong and not particularly good at firearms. But her radio skills were exceptional, and her moral conviction was unshakable. When asked why she wanted to go into enemy territory, Noor simply said, "I wish to do something active for the Allied cause." Her instructors later wrote that she possessed great courage and devotion to duty. In June 1943, Noor was given the codename Madeleine. She was to be sent into Nazi-occupied France as a wireless operator, one of the most dangerous roles in all of espionage. A radio operator was the lifeline between the resistance and London, but also a constant target for the Gestapo. The average life expectancy of an SOE wireless operator in occupied France was 6 weeks. Still, Noor accepted the mission. She knew the risks and went anyway. On the night of June 16th, 1943, Noor climbed into a twin-engine Lysander aircraft on a secret airfield in southern England. The pilot flew low over the English Channel, landing briefly in a moonlit French field. Noor stepped out with her small radio set, her fake papers, and a beating heart that refused to waver. From that moment on, she was no longer Noor Inayat Khan. She was Madeleine, a French nurse from Paris. Noor joined the Prosper Network, one of the SOE's largest resistance groups in Paris. Her job was to send coded radio messages back to London, coordinating sabotage missions, arms drops, and the movement of supplies to the French resistance. She operated in safe houses, moving constantly to avoid detection. She sent messages at night, her transmitter hidden under blankets or in a suitcase. Each time she pressed the key, she knew that German detection trucks could triangulate her signal. Every transmission risked capture. Within weeks, disaster struck. The Prosper Network, the very group Noor had joined, was betrayed. Dozens of agents were arrested, tortured, and executed. London ordered Noor to return home immediately. Her network was gone, the Gestapo were hunting wireless operators, and she was alone. But she refused. She was the last surviving radio operator in Paris, and she knew that if she left, the resistance would lose all contact with London. So she stayed. For 3 months, Noor operated entirely alone, a one-woman network, constantly on the move, changing disguises, sleeping in attics, cellars, and strangers' apartments. She carried her heavy radio everywhere, transmitting from different parts of the city each night. Her messages kept the Allied command informed about German troop movements, upcoming raids, and opportunities for sabotage. One SOE officer later said, "She was the most courageous person I have ever known." The Gestapo knew there was a wireless operator somewhere in Paris, a ghost sending coded signals to London. They called her the woman with the magic fingers. They searched relentlessly. Noor narrowly escaped several traps, once slipping out a back door just minutes before German agents stormed her safe house. By September 1943, her luck finally ran out. Someone betrayed her location to the Gestapo, possibly a French collaborator or a jealous acquaintance. They surrounded her apartment and arrested her. When they searched her belongings, they found her codes and radio equipment. It was the end of her mission, but not of her fight. At Gestapo headquarters in Paris, Noor was interrogated by Hans Kiefer, the head of German counterintelligence. He expected the usual: fear, confession, compliance. Instead, he found defiance. Noor refused to give them any information. Not her real name, not her contacts, not a single detail of the network. She tried to escape twice, once by slipping through a bathroom window, and another time by climbing across a roof in the rain before being recaptured. Frustrated, the Gestapo labeled her highly dangerous. She was shackled, handcuffed, day and night, and eventually transferred to Pforzheim prison in Germany, where she was kept in solitary confinement for 10 months. During that time, she endured constant interrogations and brutal treatment. Yet every report from her captors said the same thing. She refused to cooperate. She remained silent, even under beatings. Even after months of isolation, she never revealed a single name or secret. Her courage inspired even those who guarded her. One German officer later admitted that he admired her strength. In September 1944, as the Allies were advancing through France, the Gestapo decided to remove their most dangerous prisoners, those who might inspire resistance if rescued. Noor was sent to Dachau concentration camp, along with 3 other captured female SOE agents. At dawn, on September 13th, 1944, the 4 women were taken from their cells. They had been beaten and starved, but Noor still stood with quiet dignity. According to a witness, her final word before execution was simple and unforgettable. She whispered, "Liberté," freedom. She was 30 years old. Noor Inayat Khan was posthumously awarded the George Cross, one of Britain's highest honors for bravery. The French government awarded her the Croix de Guerre, recognizing her courage and sacrifice. Her memorial now stands in Gordon Square, London, and in Paris. A blue plaque marks the house where she sent her last transmissions, the place where one young woman, armed only with a radio and her belief in freedom, defied an empire. She was not a soldier, not a fighter, not someone born for war. But in a world that had lost its humanity, Noor Inayat Khan chose to hold on to hers until her last breath. For many years after her death, Noor Inayat Khan's story almost vanished, hidden beneath the countless tragedies of World War II. Her mission had been secret, her code name forgotten, and her sacrifice buried in classified archives. But courage like Noor's does not stay hidden forever. Her legacy began to surface piece by piece as historians and surviving agents of the SOE began to speak of the young woman they had once known as Madeleine. When the war ended, SOE records revealed her extraordinary role in the French resistance. Her name appeared alongside hundreds of men and women who had been captured or executed behind enemy lines. But unlike many, Noor's story carried a haunting blend of gentleness and bravery, a poet's heart in a soldier's war. Her family, who had fled France before the Nazi occupation, only learned later that she had been captured and killed. Her mother, Aura Ray Baker, was devastated, but she also believed that her daughter's spirit lived on in the peace she had always sought to create. In 1949, Noor was posthumously awarded the George Cross, the highest civilian decoration in the United Kingdom for acts of heroism. The citation read, "For most conspicuous courage, both moral and physical, in circumstances of the greatest danger." In France, she was honored with the Croix de Guerre, and her name was engraved on the F-section memorial at Valenciennes, alongside the other SOE agents who gave their lives for the liberation of France. But Noor's story is more than just the record of a spy. It's a human story about conviction, identity, and the quiet strength that can outshine the loudest guns. To truly understand Noor, one must remember where she came from, a life that seemed worlds away from espionage and war. Her father, Hazrat Inayat Khan, was not a soldier or a politician. He was a Sufi mystic, a musician who preached love, harmony, and the unity of all faiths. He often said, "The heart that loves is the heart that serves." He taught his daughter that all life is sacred, that even in darkness, one must act with compassion. That spiritual upbringing became Noor's compass. She was not driven by hatred of the enemy, but by love for the innocent. Her decision to fight was not vengeance, it was responsibility. Even her name carried meaning. Noor means light in Arabic, and throughout her mission, she became exactly that, a light in one of the darkest chapters of human history. What made Noor so unique among the SOE agents was not just her skill, but her unwavering loyalty. When the Gestapo arrested her, they discovered notebooks filled with radio codes. They demanded she decrypt them. She refused. They demanded she reveal names. She refused. They demanded she cooperate in exchange for her life. Still, she refused. In prison, she was beaten, starved, and kept in chains. Her captors described her as defiant and unbreakable. A German officer who later testified after the war said that even in her final moments, Noor showed no fear. She stood tall, even when she was certain of her fate. Her final word, liberté, was not just a cry of defiance, but a prayer for all those still fighting, still suffering, still waiting to be free. For decades, Noor's story was known only to historians and former SOE members. But in time, her quiet heroism began to inspire new generations. In 2012, a bronze bust of Noor Inayat Khan was unveiled in Gordon Square Gardens, London, the first memorial in Britain dedicated to an Asian woman and a Muslim officer who served during World War II. The ceremony was attended by Princess Anne and by hundreds who had come to honor a woman who, for so long, had been forgotten. In 2020, a new generation rediscovered Noor through documentaries, films, and books, and her story began spreading across social media, inspiring countless people around the world. Her life became a powerful reminder that bravery is not born from violence or anger, but from compassion, conviction, and faith in humanity. What makes Noor's legacy so powerful is that it transcends borders and beliefs. She was Indian by blood, American by birth, French by upbringing, and British by service. Yet she belonged to none of them entirely. She represented something larger, the idea that freedom, justice, and courage have no nationality. Today, when visitors walk through Gordon Square, they often stop before her statue, a serene figure with gentle eyes, holding the same radio transmitter that once carried messages of hope to the Allies. Beneath her statue, the inscription reads, Noor Inayat Khan, George Cross, Croix de Guerre, MBE, Madeleine. The name Madeleine, or her code name, is carved into the base, a reminder of the life she led in the shadows, unseen but unforgettable. In 2018, she was also honored with a new Royal Mail stamp in the UK, part of the Women of Distinction series. And in 2023, she was chosen by Time magazine as one of the 100 women of courage who changed the world. Her courage continues to shine decades later, like a signal sent across time. Just as her radio once transmitted hope across enemy lines, Noor's story resonates deeply in today's world because it speaks to something universal. The idea that even one person, armed with nothing but conviction, can make a difference. She was a woman of peace who stepped into war, not because she wanted to, but because she had to. She was a believer in love who confronted hatred and never let it consume her. Her story reminds us that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers quietly, through fear and pain, and still chooses to act. When Noor sat before her transmitter, tapping out her coded messages in the dead of night, she knew that the world might never know her name. She wasn't fighting for recognition. She was fighting for freedom. That's what makes her story timeless. After her death, the Allies found among her belongings a few personal notes and unfinished writings. One of them read, "If one believes in peace, one must sometimes be ready to sacrifice everything for it." These words, written long before her mission, almost seem prophetic. In another note, she described her hope that one day, children everywhere will live without fear. It's heartbreaking, and yet deeply beautiful, that even in a time of war, her thoughts were of others, not herself. Across France and Britain, Noor's name has become a symbol of cross-cultural unity. Schools and community centers have been named after her. Documentaries and stage plays continue to tell her story to new audiences. And in 2020, Netflix released a short documentary segment about her under the Spycraft series, introducing millions of viewers to the woman who defied Nazi Germany with nothing but her courage and her radio. Her story is now taught in classrooms across Europe and India, not just as history, but as an example of moral courage, faith, and sacrifice. Imagine her, sitting alone in a dim Paris attic, her hands hovering over the transmitter keys, the sound of boots echoing in the streets below, the hum of danger in every wall. She adjusts the frequency, breathes deeply, and sends one more message, a coded transmission that crosses the night sky, bound for London. A signal of hope, a signal of defiance, a signal that freedom still lived. Decades later, her story still sends a message to all of us, that even in times of darkness, there are those who refuse to let the light die. Noor Inayat Khan, writer, dreamer, spy, and heroine, proved that one heart, pure and unyielding, could stand against an empire of cruelty. Her light, her Noor, still shines across time, across nations, and across every person who dares to believe that peace is worth fighting for. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Noor Inayat Khan's courage reminds us that even the smallest act of resistance can change the course of history. If you believe her story deserves to be remembered, leave a like, share this video, and subscribe for more true stories of extraordinary people who changed the world.